The gun was already in his hand when I saw him turn the corner. I had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether I would live or die in a foreign embassy at 2:47 in the morning, with classified evidence against my chest and no backup within 5 miles of my location. 3 seconds. That is all the time God gives you sometimes. 3 seconds between breathing and not breathing. 3 seconds between your mother getting that phone call and never getting that phone call. 3 seconds between everything you planned for your life and a cold marble floor in a country that would never admit you existed. My name is Charlotte Reeves. I was 34 years old on the night I am about to tell you about. I had brown hair that I kept shoulder length because anything longer got in the way during operations, and anything shorter made me look too severe for the cover identities I typically ran. I had green eyes that my mother always said looked like sea glass and my father always said looked like trouble. I was 5'6", 132 pounds. I could run a 7-minute mile. I could shoot a target at 400 meters. I could speak 4 languages fluently and 2 more passably. I could lie to your face while smiling and you would believe every single word because that is what they trained me to do. But none of that matters. None of the training, none of the languages, none of the marksmanship or the miles or the years of preparation. What matters is what happened in that embassy. What matters is the moment I cannot explain. What matters is the cleaning lady with the soft voice and the calm eyes who I have never seen before and never saw again, and who I believe with every fiber of my being was not a cleaning lady at all. I am going to tell you this story not because I want you to think I am brave. I was terrified. I am going to tell you this story not because I want you to think I am special. I am ordinary in almost every way that counts. I'm going to tell you this story because I need you to understand that there are moments in this life when something reaches down from somewhere we cannot see and touches us in ways we cannot explain. And if you have ever experienced such a moment, then you already know exactly what I am talking about. And if you have never experienced such a moment, then perhaps my story will open your eyes to the possibility that we are not alone in this universe, and we are not walking through our days without someone watching over us. This is not a story about me. This is a story about what happens when human effort reaches its absolute limit and something else takes over. This is a story about angels. Let me take you back. It was November. London was doing what London does in November, which is to say it was cold and wet and gray, and the kind of beautiful that makes you feel lonely even when you are surrounded by people. I had been undercover for 11 months. 11 months of a life that was not my life. 11 months of a name that was not my name. 11 months of smiling at people I did not trust and laughing at jokes that were not funny and pretending to care about things I did not care about while secretly caring very much about the one thing I could not tell anyone about. My cover was cultural attaché, boring, bureaucratic, perfect. Nobody pays attention to cultural attachés. We are the background noise of diplomatic life. We organize art exhibitions. We coordinate educational exchanges. We send emails about poetry readings and film screenings, and occasionally we attend receptions where we drink mediocre wine and make small talk with people who are also drinking mediocre wine and making small talk, and everyone pretends that this is somehow important work, when really it is just the grease that keeps the machinery of international relations from grinding to a halt. That was my cover. My reality was something else entirely. I was a cybersecurity intelligence analyst for an agency whose name I cannot tell you, operating under the authority of a department whose existence is not officially acknowledged. My mission was to infiltrate a specific embassy in London. Not the British one, obviously. A different embassy. One belonging to a nation that had been increasingly hostile in the digital domain and had been linked to a series of sophisticated cyber attacks against American infrastructure. Hospitals. They were targeting hospitals. I need you to understand what that means. When someone attacks a hospital with malware or ransomware or any kind of cyber weapon, they are not just attacking computers. They are attacking the machines that keep premature babies breathing. They are attacking the systems that track medication dosages for cancer patients. They are attacking the networks that allow surgeons to access critical information during operations. They are attacking the infrastructure that determines whether ambulances get dispatched in time. They are attacking life itself. We had intelligence, fragments, pieces of a puzzle that suggested something massive was being planned. A coordinated attack against dozens of American hospitals simultaneously. The kind of attack that would not just steal data or demand ransom, but would actually shut down critical systems during peak hours and would result in deaths. Many deaths. Preventable deaths. The deaths of people whose only crime was being sick at the wrong moment in history. I was sent to find the proof. 11 months I worked that embassy. 11 months of building relationships. 11 months of earning trust. 11 months of being Charlotte, the cultural attaché who loved classical music and had strong opinions about contemporary architecture, and who seemed to have no political interests whatsoever, and who was frankly a little boring but harmless. Definitely harmless. They invited me to events, then to smaller events, then to dinners, then to private gatherings, slowly, carefully, the way you build anything worth building, one brick at a time. I made friends, or what passed for friends in that world. There was a woman named Irina who worked in trade relations and who had a dry sense of humor and a fondness for British chocolate that she pretended to be ashamed of. There was a man named Dmitri who handled logistics and who loved to talk about football, and who once showed me pictures of his daughter's ballet recital with such obvious pride that I almost forgot he was someone I was supposed to be suspicious of. There were others. Dozens of others. Each one a potential asset. Each one a potential threat. Each one a human being with a life and a family and dreams and fears, and no idea that the American woman who laughed at their jokes and remembered their birthdays was systematically working to destroy everything they were building. This is the part of the job they do not tell you about in the training. They tell you about the danger. They tell you about the protocols. They tell you about the dead drops and the encrypted communications and the extraction procedures. They tell you what to do if you are captured, and what to say if you are interrogated, and how to resist and how to survive. They do not tell you about the guilt. They do not tell you what it feels like to genuinely like someone and know that you are betraying them. They do not tell you what it feels like to accept someone's hospitality and repay it with espionage. They do not tell you what it feels like to look in the mirror and wonder if you are still a good person, or if the work has hollowed you out and replaced everything decent with something cold and calculating. I believed in the mission. I still believe in the mission. Those hospitals, those patients, those lives, the math was simple. My conscience against thousands of innocent people, my comfort against their survival. It was not even close. But the guilt was still there, underneath everything, a constant hum that never quite went away. November 14th. I remember the date because it was my mother's birthday. I had called her that morning using my cover phone and my cover voice, and I had wished her a happy birthday, and she had told me she missed me, and I had told her I missed her too, and that was the only true thing I said during that entire conversation. I was not really working for a cultural organization. I was not really living the life she thought I was living. I was not really safe. But I told her I loved her. That part was true too. That night I had access to the embassy for a reception celebrating some anniversary of some treaty that nobody actually cared about. The reception was on the first floor. Large rooms, many guests, plenty of noise and movement and chaos. Perfect cover. I had spent 3 months working toward this night. 3 months of careful positioning. 3 months of studying security rotations. 3 months of identifying the window. And there it was. Between 9:45 and 10:15 on the night of November 14th, there would be a gap. A shift change combined with the reception meant that the third-floor communications center would be minimally staffed. 1 guard instead of 3. And that 1 guard had a habit of stepping out for exactly 8 minutes at the top of each hour to smoke a cigarette on the back stairwell. 8 minutes. That was my window. I had done this before, not exactly this, but similar operations. I knew the feeling, the dry mouth, the accelerated heartbeat, the hyper-awareness that makes every sound louder and every movement sharper. I knew how to breathe through it, how to project calm I did not feel. How to walk like someone who had every right to be exactly where she was. At 9:53, I excused myself from a conversation about contemporary dance. I smiled at Irina and told her I needed to find the ladies' room. She nodded and continued talking to someone from the French embassy about trade regulations. I walked toward the main staircase. Then I turned, walked down a side corridor, passed through a service door, climbed 3 flights of stairs. The communications center was at the end of a long hallway with terrible carpet and fluorescent lighting that buzzed slightly in a frequency that seemed designed to cause headaches. There was a security desk outside the main door, and sitting at that desk was a guard named Victor who I had studied for weeks. Victor who smoked Marlboro Reds. Victor who checked his phone constantly. Victor who at 10:01 would step out for his cigarette and give me my window. I waited around the corner, pressed against the wall, barely breathing. At 10:02, I heard his chair scrape, heard his footsteps, heard the door to the stairwell open and close. I moved. The door to the communications center was locked with a keypad. I had the code. It had taken me 2 months to get it. A combination of careful observation and a hidden camera the size of a shirt button and more luck than I deserved. I punched in the numbers. The light turned green. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was exactly as the intelligence had described. Banks of servers humming along one wall, multiple workstations, monitors displaying feeds and data streams and communications logs, and in the center of it, all one computer that I had been told contained the evidence I needed. The plans, the targeting data, the proof that would allow us to prevent the attack and attribute it to the right people and respond in ways that I was not cleared to know about. I had 4 minutes. I moved to the computer. It was password protected, but I had that too. Same method, same patience, same luck. I logged in, navigated to the directory I had been briefed on, and there it was. A folder labeled with a code name that matched exactly what our analysts had predicted. I pulled out the flash drive, inserted it, began the download. The progress bar moved slowly, too slowly. Seconds felt like hours. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my fingertips, in my teeth. 60%. I kept my eyes on the door, on the timer in my head. Victor would be back at 10:10, maybe 10:11 if I was lucky. It was 10:06. 70%. Outside the window, I could see the lights of London. Normal people living normal lives, watching television, eating dinner, putting their children to bed. None of them knew what was happening in this room. None of them knew how close they had come to a disaster they would never understand. 80%. I heard something, or thought I heard something. A voice in the hallway, footsteps. I froze, stopped breathing, listened. Nothing. Just the servers, just the fluorescent lights, just my own fear creating phantoms. 90%. Come on, come on, come on. 95%. And then something changed. I cannot explain this part in a way that will make sense to someone who has not experienced it. There was no sound, no sight, nothing my senses detected in any normal way, but suddenly the room felt different, colder, heavier, like the air itself had changed. And inside me, in a place that was not my brain and not my heart and not any organ I could name, I felt something. A voice. Not audible, not words exactly, but communication nonetheless, clear and firm and absolutely certain. Leave now. I looked at the screen, 97%, 3 more seconds, maybe 4. The download was almost complete. I had risked everything for this file. 11 months, my cover, my safety, everything. Leave now. The voice again, stronger this time, more urgent. I did not argue. I did not hesitate. I did not reason or rationalize or calculate. I pulled the drive. The download was incomplete. I had 97% of the file, not 100. 97. There could be critical information in that missing 3%. There could be details we needed. There could be everything. But I pulled the drive. And I walked to the door, calmly, not running, not panicking, just walking, like someone who had every right to be exactly where she was. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, turned the corner. And behind me, I heard the communications center door burst open as 3 security guards stormed in. Not one, not Victor coming back from his cigarette. 3, armed, moving fast, shouting in a language I understood but did not stop to process. If I had stayed 10 more seconds, I would have been inside that room when they entered. If I had waited for 100%, I would have been caught. If I had not listened to that voice, I would be dead or worse. I walked, not ran, walked, down the hallway toward the back stairwell. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. My hands were shaking, but my face was calm. I was still playing the role, still being Charlotte the cultural attaché who had simply gotten lost looking for the ladies' room. But inside I was screaming. What just happened? What was that voice? How did it know? How did I know? Why did I listen? Why did I trust it? I did not have answers. I still do not have answers, but I was alive, and that was more than I deserved. The stairwell was clear. I descended. 1 floor, 2 floors. The reception was still happening on the 1st floor. I could hear the music, the voices, the clinking of glasses, normal sounds from a normal world that suddenly felt very far away. But I could not go back to the reception. The alarm had not been raised yet, but it would be. Any moment now, someone would realize that the computer had been accessed. Someone would check the security logs. Someone would start asking questions. And when they did, they would lock down the building and check everyone against the guest list, and I would be trapped. I needed to get out, now. The front entrance was not an option. Too visible, too many checkpoints, too much scrutiny. The side entrances were all monitored. Cameras, guards, keycard access. That left the back, the service entrance, the one used by delivery trucks and catering staff and the small army of cleaners and maintenance workers who kept the embassy functioning. I moved through the basement level, past storage rooms and mechanical systems and a boiler that rumbled like a sleeping animal. The service entrance was ahead. I could see the door, see the checkpoint. And I could see that it was manned. 2 guards, both armed, both alert. They were not supposed to be there. The intelligence said this entrance was only manned during business hours, but here they were, at 10:15 at night, standing between me and freedom. I stopped. I could not go forward. I could not go back. The alarm would be raised any minute. The building would be locked down. I would be caught. I would be interrogated. I would disappear into a system designed to make people disappear. For the first time in my career, I did not have a plan. For the first time in my life, I did not have a next move. I stood in that basement corridor with stolen intelligence against my chest and armed guards ahead of me and armed guards behind me, and I realized that I was completely and utterly alone. Except I was not alone. I know that now. In that moment, I did something I had not done since I was a little girl sitting beside my grandmother in a church with stained glass windows that made the light dance in colors I had never seen before. I prayed. Not out loud, not with any formal words, just a simple, desperate reaching out toward something I was not even sure I believed in anymore. God, if you are there, if you are real, I need help. I cannot do this alone. Please guide me. And then I saw it. The service elevator. It was old, slow, the kind of freight elevator that was probably installed in the 50s and had been upgraded just enough to meet modern safety standards, but not enough to actually work properly. It was risky. Elevators were traps. If someone was waiting when the doors opened, there was nowhere to go. If someone stopped it between floors, there was nowhere to hide. But it was my only option. I pressed the button, waited. The numbers above the door indicated it was on the 4th floor, coming down, slowly. Behind me, I heard voices, movement. The building was waking up. The alarm was spreading. 4th floor. 3rd floor. Hurry, please hurry. 2nd floor. The voices were getting closer. Someone shouted something about checking all exits. 1st floor. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. And standing inside was a cleaning lady. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, gray hair pulled back in a simple bun, a face that was lined with age but soft with something I can only describe as kindness. She wore the standard uniform of the embassy cleaning staff: blue dress, white apron, name tag that I could not read in the dim light. She looked directly at me. Not through me, not past me, directly at me, into me, like she could see everything I was and everything I had done and everything I was afraid of. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but every word was clear. "Third floor hallway is clear. Go now." I stared at her, my mouth opened but no words came out. How did she know? How could she know? Who was she? What was happening? She smiled, just slightly, just enough. "Go now, child. You are protected." I stepped into the elevator. She stepped out. The doors began to close. "Wait," I said. "Who are you?" But she was already walking away, already disappearing into the shadows of that basement corridor, already gone. The doors closed. I pressed the button for 3. The elevator rose, slowly, so slowly. Every second felt like an eternity. Every creak and groan of the old machinery sounded like a warning. I pressed myself against the wall, tried to control my breathing, tried to think. The third floor, why the third floor? There was nothing special about the third floor, no exit I knew of, no safe route, nothing. But she had said it was clear. She had told me to go. And I had listened to the voice before. The voice inside me. The voice that told me to leave the communications center 10 seconds before everything went wrong. I would listen again. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I stepped into the third floor hallway. It was empty, completely empty. The lights were dim. The carpet muffled my footsteps, and at the far end of the corridor I saw something I had not seen before. A door. It was not on any floor plan I had studied. It was not part of any briefing I had received. It was just there. A plain door with no marking, no security panel, no lock that I could see. I walked toward it. Every instinct told me this was wrong. Every bit of training screamed that I was walking into a trap. But something else, something deeper, something that had nothing to do with training or instinct, something that felt like faith. That something told me to keep walking. I reached the door. I turned the handle. It opened. And I was outside. Cold air hit my face. London night wrapped around me. I was in a small alley behind the embassy. A service entrance I had never known about. A way out that should not have existed. My extraction vehicle was supposed to be parked 3 blocks north. A black sedan with diplomatic plates and a driver who would ask no questions. I was supposed to reach it through the front entrance after the reception ended. That plan was gone now. Burned. Useless. But as I stepped into the alley, I saw headlights. A car was waiting. A black sedan, diplomatic plates. The passenger window rolled down. A face I recognized. My handler. A man I knew only as Marcus, who I had met exactly twice before and who I was not supposed to see until the following week. "Charlotte," he said, "get in." I did not ask how he knew. I did not ask how he was there. I did not ask anything. I got in. He drove. We were 6 blocks away before I remembered to breathe. "How?" I said. "How did you know?" He looked at me. His face was unreadable. "We received a communication," he said. "Anonymous, untraceable. Said you were in trouble and gave the exact location where we could extract you." A communication, anonymous, untraceable. From whom? He shook his head. "We do not know. Our analysts spent 3 hours trying to trace it. Nothing. It is like it came from nowhere." I leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes, felt the drive pressing against my chest. 97% of the file, 97% of the evidence we needed. It was enough. The cyber attack was prevented. Our analysts filled in the missing 3% through other sources. The hospitals were warned. The vulnerabilities were patched. The attackers were identified and quietly dealt with in ways that I am still not cleared to know about. Thousands of patients were protected. Thousands of lives were saved. And I was alive. But I could not stop thinking about the cleaning lady. I requested her file. Through channels that should have been able to access every employee record in that embassy, every cleaning staff member, every contractor, everyone. There was no one matching her description. I requested security footage from the basement that night. Every camera, every angle. She did not appear on any of them. I was on the footage, clear as day, walking through the basement, stopping outside the service elevator, waiting, getting in, riding up to 3. But the elevator was empty when the doors opened on the basement level. Empty when I stepped in. Empty according to every camera that should have captured her. I asked Marcus about it, showed him the footage, explained what I had seen, what she had said, how she had known. He looked at me for a long moment. "Charlotte," he said, "I have been doing this work for 32 years. I have seen things I cannot explain. I have survived situations I should not have survived. And every single time there has been something. Some piece that does not fit. Some element that makes no sense. Some presence that seems to come from somewhere else." He paused. "I stopped trying to explain it years ago. Now I just say thank you. That was 3 years ago. I am no longer undercover. I work a desk now. Safer. Quieter. The kind of job that lets me sleep at night and call my mother on her birthday using my real voice and tell her the truth about my life. Most of the truth anyway. But I still think about that night. Every November 14th, I think about that night. I think about the voice that told me to leave 10 seconds before everything went wrong. I think about the cleaning lady with the soft voice and the kind eyes who knew things she could not possibly have known. I think about the door that should not have existed and the car that was waiting and the communication from nowhere that saved my life. And I ask myself the same question I have been asking for 3 years. What happened in that embassy? I have considered every rational explanation. Maybe the cleaning lady was another operative, someone from our side who I did not know about, but that makes no sense. We would have acknowledged her. We would have records. She would have appeared on camera. Maybe she was from their side, a double agent, someone who wanted the attack stopped for reasons of their own. But that makes even less sense. Why help me? Why risk exposure? Why disappear so completely that no trace of her existence can be found? Maybe I imagined her. Stress, fear, adrenaline, the mind creating exactly what it needed to survive. But I did not imagine the unlocked door. I did not imagine the third-floor hallway being clear. I did not imagine the extraction car arriving at exactly the right place at exactly the right time because of a communication that no one can trace. Something happened that night. Something that does not fit into any category I was trained to understand. Something that feels less like coincidence and more like intervention. I grew up in a household that believed in God. My grandmother took me to church. My mother read me stories from a children's Bible with illustrations of angels who had golden wings and peaceful faces. I believed all of it the way children believe things, completely, without question, without doubt. And then I grew up. I learned about the world, about its cruelty, about its randomness, about the terrible things that happen to good people and the good things that happen to terrible people. I learned about war and famine and disease and injustice. I learned that the universe did not seem to operate according to any rules that made sense from a loving God perspective. And my faith faded. Not dramatically, not through any crisis or rejection. It just faded. The way things fade when you stop paying attention to them. The way colors fade when you leave something in the sun too long. Gradually, almost imperceptibly. Until one day you realize that the thing you used to believe so completely has become the thing you used to believe. I was not an atheist. I was not sure enough for that, but I was not a believer either. I was something in between, something uncertain, something waiting. And then that night. That voice, that woman, that door, that escape. I cannot prove anything. I have no evidence that would stand up in any court. I have no video, no witnesses, no documentation. All I have is my experience. All I have is what happened to me. And what happened to me changed everything. I started praying again, not because I had to, not because I thought it would make my life better or bring me things I wanted, but because I could not pray. Because the experience of that night had opened something in me that would not close, because I had touched something, or something had touched me, and I could not pretend it had not happened. I started going to church again, a small one near my apartment, nothing fancy, just a building with some pews and some windows and a pastor who says simple things simply and never tries to be clever. I sit in the back usually. I do not know most of the hymns anymore. I stumble through the prayers like a tourist in a country whose language I once spoke fluently but have mostly forgotten. But I am there. I am there because of a cleaning lady in an embassy who should not have existed. I am there because of a voice inside me that knew something was wrong 10 seconds before I could have possibly known. I am there because I am alive, and I should not be alive, and the only explanation that makes any sense is the explanation that makes no sense at all. Angels. I know how that sounds. I know what the rational mind does with that word. I know the objections and the skepticism and the raised eyebrows and the polite silence of people who think you have lost your grip on reality. I do not care. I have spent my entire adult life in a profession that worships evidence. That demands proof. That dismisses anything that cannot be measured and documented and verified. And I am good at that profession. I understand why it operates the way it does. I understand why the standards exist. But I also understand that there are things beyond those standards. There are experiences that evidence cannot capture. There are moments that documentation cannot contain. There are truths that verification cannot reach. And one of those truths found me in the basement of a foreign embassy on a cold November night, when I had run out of options and run out of plans and run out of everything except a desperate prayer to a God I was not even sure I believed in anymore. That cleaning lady. I think about her every day. Her soft voice, her kind eyes, the way she looked at me like she knew me, like she had always known me, like she had been waiting for exactly that moment to appear exactly where I needed her. Third floor hallway is clear. Go now. How did she know? How could she possibly have known? The only answer I have is the answer that my rational mind resists and my heart embraces. She was not just a cleaning lady. She was not a person at all, not in the way we understand persons, not a human being with a life and a history and a name. She was something else. She was sent. I believe that, with everything I am, with everything I have experienced, with everything I have learned in the years since that night. God sent an angel to save me. Not because I deserved it. I have done things in my career that I am not proud of. I have lied. I have manipulated. I have betrayed people who trusted me. I am not a saint. I am not even particularly good by most measures of goodness. But I was saved anyway. That is what grace means. I understand that now in a way I never did before. Grace is not about deserving. Grace is not about earning. Grace is not about being good enough or righteous enough or faithful enough. Grace is about being loved anyway. Grace is about being saved even when you have no right to be saved. Grace is about a cleaning lady appearing in an elevator at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right words to lead you to safety, when every rational calculation says you should be dead or captured or lost. I do not know why I was chosen. I do not know why I was protected when so many others have not been. I do not know why my prayers were answered when so many prayers seem to go unanswered. These are questions I cannot answer. These are mysteries I cannot solve. These are parts of the puzzle that I have stopped trying to fit together because I have come to believe that some puzzles are not meant to be solved by human minds. But I know what I experienced. I know what I felt. I know what happened to me in that embassy. And I know that I am not the same person who walked into that building on November 14th, 3 years ago. That Charlotte was uncertain, hollow, going through the motions of a faith she had mostly abandoned. This Charlotte, the one speaking to you now, the one who has carried this story for 3 years and is finally finding the words to tell it. This Charlotte believes. Not in a theoretical God who exists in philosophy books and theological debates. Not in a distant God who created the universe and then stepped back to watch it unfold. In a present God, a personal God, a God who sees us in our darkest moments and reaches down through the fabric of reality itself to touch us with hands we cannot see and voices we cannot explain. A God who sends angels. I have told this story to very few people. My mother, my pastor, a few close friends who I trust not to think I have lost my mind. Each time I tell it, I end the same way, with the same words, with the same conviction. That cleaning lady. I do not think she was just a cleaning lady. I think God sent an angel that night. I think she saved my life. And I think she disappeared because her work was done, and she was called back to wherever angels go when their missions are complete. You can believe that or not. That is your choice. I am not here to convince anyone of anything. I am not here to argue or debate or prove something that cannot be proven. I am here to witness. I am here to tell you what happened to me. I am here to say that in a world that often feels random and cruel and meaningless, there are moments when something breaks through. Moments when the veil between this reality and whatever lies beyond it becomes thin enough for something to cross over. Moments when we are reminded that we are not alone and never have been. I had one of those moments. It changed my life. It saved my life. And I will carry it with me until the day I die and meet the God who sent that angel and finally get to say thank you. There is one more thing I want to tell you before I finish. After I came back from that assignment, I took a leave of absence. 3 months. I needed time to process what had happened, to grieve the cover identity I had lost, to reintegrate into a life that felt strange and too bright after 11 months in the shadows. During that leave, I went back to the church of my childhood, the one with the stained glass windows. My grandmother had passed away years before, but my mother still went occasionally, and I asked if I could join her one Sunday. We sat in the same pew where I had sat as a little girl. The same windows cast the same dancing colors across the same wooden floor, and the pastor read from a passage I had heard 100 times but never really understood until that moment. He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. I started crying. Not quietly, not delicately, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and cannot be controlled or contained. My mother held my hand and did not ask what was wrong because I think she somehow knew. Mothers know things. They have their own kind of intuition. The pastor continued. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. I thought of the basement, the elevator, the door, the car. The hands that had lifted me. The path that had been cleared. The stone I had not struck. I cried until I had no tears left. And then I sat in that pew in that church with those colored lights dancing around me, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Peace. Not the absence of fear or pain or uncertainty. Not the resolution of every question. Not the solving of every mystery. Just peace. The peace of knowing that I was seen, that I was known, that I was loved, that even in the darkest moments of my darkest night, there was something watching over me, something protecting me, something guiding me toward a door I could not find on my own. I still work in intelligence, different capacity now, training mostly, helping the next generation prepare for the things they will face in the field. I tell them about protocols and procedures and extraction plans and all the technical knowledge they need to survive. But sometimes, when I think they are ready, when I see something in their eyes that tells me they might understand, I tell them something else too. I tell them to listen. Not to their training, not to their instincts, not to their rational minds calculating odds and outcomes. To something deeper. To the voice that speaks without words. To the presence that appears without explanation. To the guidance that comes from somewhere beyond everything we think we know. Because there will come a moment, for each of them, when the training will not be enough, when the protocols will fail, When they will stand in a basement or a hallway or a room full of enemies with no plan and no options and no hope. And in that moment, if they listen, they might hear something, someone, and if they are brave enough to follow that voice, to trust it even when it makes no sense, they might find themselves walking through a door that should not exist, toward a safety that should not be possible, carried by hands they will never see. That is my story. That is my witness. That is what I know to be true, even when I cannot prove it. God is real. Angels are real. Miracles are real. And I am alive today because on a cold November night in a foreign embassy, when everything had gone wrong, and I had nothing left to offer but a desperate prayer, God answered. If you have made it this far, if you have listened to this entire story, if something in these words has resonated with something in your own experience, I want to ask you something. Not to believe me. Belief cannot be commanded. Not to change your mind. That is your journey, not mine. Just this. Stay open. Stay listening. Because you never know when your moment will come. You never know when you will find yourself in your own basement with your own guards behind you and your own locked doors ahead. You never know when everything you thought would save you will fail and you will be left with nothing but a prayer you are not even sure you remember how to pray. And in that moment, if you are open, if you are listening, you might hear a voice. You might see a face. You might find a door. And you might walk through it into a future you never expected. Carried by grace. Guided by something beyond. Saved by an angel you will never forget. That is what happened to me. That is what I believe. That is what I know. And that is what I pray for you. May you be protected. May you be guided. May you be found when you are lost. And may you never walk alone. If you believe in miracles, if you believe that something greater than ourselves watches over us, if you believe that angels walk among us in forms we do not always recognize, then I ask only this. Say Amen. Just that one word. Because sometimes, that is all faith needs to be. One word. One moment of surrender. One tiny yes to the infinite possibility that we are loved beyond our understanding. Amen.